Thank you so much, Heather. Hello, everyone. I'd like to invite everyone to our first Crop Chat series of the spring, Crop Around the World. My name is Belinda Dye, and I'm a community engagement specialist from Northern Virginia. And I work with amazing crop walks and amazing people in Eastern Pennsylvania. So we know crop hunger walks have significant impact for our neighbors that are far, but today we're going to talk about how that impacts near. We're going to learn from some local agencies and our disaster relief programs as they share the impact that your walk is having right here at home in the US. So let me introduce you to our participants for today. We have Patty Yoder from Ames, Iowa, and then we have Claudia Connor, based in New York City, New York, and she's going to be talking about disaster relief programs. We may have one more person hopping on, Michael Halligan from Lexington, Kentucky, but in the meantime, we're just going to keep moving forward. So thank you all so much for being here. And Patty, we're going to hear from you first. And I'm just going to ask that all the other volunteers shut off their cameras until it's time for your turn. And for those of you watching, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And at the end, we're going to be sure to ask all your questions. But if we don't have time, we will be recording these and sending these to your local staffer, and hopefully they can answer the questions that we didn't have time to answer if you still have them. And like Heather said, this is recorded, so you will be getting a link tomorrow or sometime later to do evaluation forms and to send these out to everybody who you think should be watching. So we are going to go with Patty, Food at First. This first local agency we're going to hear from is called Food at First in Ames, Iowa. We're going to hear from Patty Yoder, the executive director of Food at First. And she was telling me that she feels blessed to be working with such an amazing program where she gets to give back to people and know that she's doing that every minute of the day. So, Patty, if you could please tell us a little bit about Food at First and how Crop Hunger Walk funds have impacted the agency.
Sure. So Food at First is a free meal program plus a food pantry operating here in Ames, Iowa. We serve averaging about 86 meals per day, and in our food pantry, we're averaging about 350 families each week. So quite a few for a town of our size or a city of our size. It's the prices of groceries have skyrocketed, and we've seen our numbers increase here in the recent months. But we're kind of a unique organization. We're our own little nonprofit. We're located inside of a church, but we're not part of the church. The board decided years ago, we're coming upon our 20-year anniversary, by the way, yes, that they wanted to be their own little nonprofit. And so while that has been really beneficial in some ways, it's also been challenging in others. But we operate completely on donations of food and financial. So we have volunteers that go out all over town every single day of the week and pick up or glean food from local grocery stores and restaurants and bring it back, where we then sort and organize and get it ready for either use in our meals or our food pantry. And it's just a bustling, busy place. If you can imagine, we have over 4,000 volunteers in our database, and it takes a lot of hands to make it happen. Those food donations have to be figured out, sorted, and put away, and in the right place, and sorted in the fact of we use food that's got to its best by date, or maybe has a bad orange in a bag of perfectly good oranges, and so those are sorted out, which we then send to a local farmer to either compost or use for his livestock. And so there's a lot of hands working to make it happen. And the donations from the Crop Walk and Church World Service are we're so thankful for them, and they're used for a great number of things. It could be a piece of equipment that needs replaced or repaired. It could be just plain old buying soap to clean the floors, or it just a wide variety thing. Maybe a little bit of food to fill in. It takes a lot of money and food to make a place like this happen. And like today, our food pantry is open. We will easily have 200 people coming in and out of a very small location, but with organization, it works, and we're very happy to help and be here. The volunteers in Ames are just amazing. Some of them I don't even have to schedule. I just know they'll show up and they'll do the job and take care of it. And the amount of food that comes in these doors is incredible. Last year we took in close to 500 tons of food came in these doors, which is a lot of pounds. And again, it comes from all different grocery stores and places. We're lucky to have those businesses in town that are willing to donate or that are able to. And we also have a university here, Iowa State University, which helps in many ways too, both donations of food and with student volunteers. So they're an important part of our organization. And in the summer, we miss them when they're gone for the summer.
Yeah.
But I don't know what else is interesting. We just serve a meal 365 days a year. We never take a day off. There's volunteers here on the weekends, on holidays, on snow days, on bad weather, whatever. We never have missed a meal in, like I said, almost 20 years. And that's unusual and just unusual. The other unique things about us are we're a no questions asked organization. So the guests, we call our clients guests, they do not have to fill out any paperwork. They do not have to they don't have to have an ID. It doesn't matter to us. If you are hungry, you are welcome at Food at First. And that's been very successful. Folks are very thankful for that. And they tell me that they just feel more dignified, even that they don't have to
Imagine.
fill out a bunch of paperwork and give their info. And also we let them shop here at the pantry. Of course, there's little limits of, of certain things, but they can choose what food they'd like instead of being just handed food. And they really like that. And we strive for the perishable food as well. So we don't give out a lot of canned goods. We give out as much fresh food as possible, and milk and meat. And they leave here dragging boxes of food. They're so heavy. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for your service, truly. Especially the 365. Like, wow, rain or snow. Like, that is amazing. And I know that they're super grateful for that. With the rise, I guess, of inflation, right? Especially in these times with war and everything. Can you maybe speak to how maybe like even this past fall with the crop hunger walk season, how that's helped you all with the
Yes,
funds?
definitely.
Yeah.
Sure. Like I said, with the inflation and everything, our numbers of people have gone up, and we see a greater need. We use those funds to sometimes purchase additional food. If we have 150 families go through the pantry, we want to make sure they all get plenty of groceries. So occasionally we do need to purchase some food either from the Food Bank of Iowa or from our local stores. And so we use it for that, or just the operating. There's to a business that's run 365, it takes a lot of effort all the way around to make it happen. And
Sure.
so those funds have been extremely helpful, and just tying up loose ends of whatever we need for the week. And it's just amazing to have any help at all. So we appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Patty.
Yes.
And now we're going to go to our next panelist, Michael Halligan. He serves as the CEO for God's Pantry Food Bank in Lexington, Kentucky. And there are nearly 240,000 hungry neighbors who are living with food insecurity across the food bank's central and eastern Kentucky service area. And today, Michael's going to talk to us about how money from Your Crop Hunger Walk helps their work in eliminating food insecurity in Kentucky.
Belinda, thank you so much. The first question I have for you is my camera actually on?
No, it is not.
So I've got it turned on, but it doesn't seem to be seeing me. Let me see if I can change a preference here.
You're all good. This is a new platform for some, so I completely understand. Oh, we can see you now.
There we go.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges that I have with virtual meetings is we operate on several different platforms. And every time I change from one platform to the next, I have to reconfigure something somewhere.
Yeah, I get you.
So the first thing I want to share is a kudos to Patty for sharing her thoughts. And when she comes back on the screen in a moment, I want to know if she is familiar with Collegiate United Methodist Church on Lincoln Way in Ames, Iowa. And the reason why I'm going to ask her that question is my wife, Lori, and I were married in that church in 1981. So it is a very small world.
Yeah,
and
it really is.
it was really cool to hear somebody from Ames, Iowa talking about hunger relief and working with those who are experiencing hunger and providing the graciousness of food and nutrition. And right away, I knew where First Christian Church was at because I went to school at Iowa State University. So it's a very small world.
Truly. Nice.
So one of the things that I would share with you all is God's Pantry Food Bank is a member of Feeding America, the National Hunger Relief Organization, as is the Food Bank of Iowa that Patty mentioned a moment ago. We are responsible for a service area that is 16,000 square miles, 50 counties, central and eastern Kentucky. Nearly 240,000 people who are experiencing hunger in that geography. We partner with some 475 food pantry and meal programs all across that geography, gathering and distributing some 40 million pounds of food a year to help those experiencing hunger find a pathway to a better circumstance through nutrition and through the pathways that can lead to a better circumstance. The way to envision 40 million pounds of food, that's about 35 million plates of food sitting on someone's dinner table somewhere in central and eastern Kentucky. This work matters. It matters a lot. I was born and raised in Muscatine County, Iowa. I've been around food my entire life in the food and grocery product industry, in food banking, at national hunger relief organizations, at local hunger relief organizations. And the one thing for all of us to remember that is really, really critically important is you don't end hunger in a food bank. You end hunger working in an organization like the one that Patty just described, where you're working hand in hand with those who are experiencing hunger, understanding what their needs are, and then figuring out how to source that food and to get that to those who are experiencing hunger. And things like crop walks are one of the most important advocacy tools that we have available to us to raise awareness about hunger and to find people and engage them to embrace the need. My first crop walk was when I was in my 20s in Hinsdale, Illinois, at a church that sponsored a crop walk in Hinsdale, Illinois. And so the importance of this mission and the importance of the advocacy that we can do leads to lifelong engagement to help those who are experiencing hunger all across our nation and all across the world. And Belinda, with that, I'll stop for a moment on the introduction. What questions do you have of me?
Thank you so much. That is very, very important. I guess the question that I have is with the fact that there's so many, you have so many partners, right? With this, well, with your organization and the agency, um, I'm sure some people could say, well, if there's so many people partnering, what's my dollar, or like what's my help? So could you speak to, I guess, maybe some specifics, or yes, we have a lot of organizations working with us, but this is how yours helps, right? Because every dollar counts. We know that, especially when it comes to food insecurity. So
Yeah, so here's one of the things that's really amazing, and this is true for just about every hunger relief organization, food bank, food pantry, on-site meal program. The statistics will vary a little bit from one state to the other. For $1, God's Pantry Food Bank and the partner agencies that we work with can gather and distribute enough food to create 7 meals for $1. So imagine taking that dollar and going to a grocery store, particularly with inflation being what it is today, and asking yourself, how much food can I get at a grocery store for $1? And then imagine taking that same $1 bill and donating it to a hunger relief organization where they can multiply it into multiple meals. That's one way to think about the impact of the generosity, whether it be through your own personal generosity or whether it be gathering sponsors when you're on a crop walk. That's the return on the investment of time, on the investment of a donation that you get through God's Pantry Food Bank or for any other food bank or hunger relief organization in the country. The second part of that, I think, Belinda, that's really important is the efficiency of fundraising relative to program and program delivery. We are a 4-star Charity Navigator rated charity, nonprofit, and we've been doing that for somewhere between 12 and 14 years. I'm superstitious, so you figure out the number that's between 12 and 14. We've been a 4-star Charity Navigated organization for that long, and it's because our program efficiency is slightly over 98%. So for every dollar that is donated, 98 cents of that goes directly to programming, and only 2% goes to overhead administration and fundraising. 98 cents on the dollar goes directly to program delivery. There's not a lot of nonprofits in the country that can say that. Most hunger relief organizations can.
so good. Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure for those who, I mean, guess in general, right, with speaking about money, wondering where does my money actually go to, you broke it down perfectly. And I am
Yeah.
so grateful for that.
Well, and my encouragement to folks that are listening to today's webinar, there are wonderful resources available to research the charities that you choose to give to. And I would encourage anyone, whether it's $1, whether it's $100, or whether it's some other figure, before you donate, understand who you are donating to and understand the impact that they are having on the lives of others. And think about the return on the investment for your hard-earned dollars and how they help extend and impact the lives of others. And there's lots of great resources out there to do that kind of research. like Charity Navigator and a whole bunch of others. And it's really important for all of us, particularly in this day and age, with inflation being what it is. It's really important for all of us to understand how our support is being used and to make sure that the support we provide, regardless of what your intent is, it's really important that your intent is met. And it's really important that you understand the stewardship with which your funding will be honored.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
And now next, well, we've heard from local agencies of all sizes on how a portion of the funds they get from your crop hunger walks impacts their work, but it's also important to note that these funds also help CWS's disaster relief programs. So with floods in California to tornadoes in Kentucky, CWS is there on the ground with kits, blankets, and other resources, all because of the monies raised at your walks. So next, we're going to hear from CWS's own Claudia Connor talk about the impacts of these funds. She is the Senior Director of U.S. Programs for CWS, and her office is located in New York City. So Claudia, take it away.
Thanks, Belinda. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm just going to attempt to share my screen. I do have a few visuals. Whoops, is that working? You can see it?
Yep,
Oh,
I can see them.
Okay, I don't see it. One moment.
So, give me 1 second. How about you unshare your screen and you have a pop-up from Outlook. So if you want to exit out of that and then reshare your screen.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. Hold on, sorry everyone.
Apology. In the meantime, everybody keep asking your questions. I see the chat box filling up and looking forward to asking our panelists these questions. Yes, all right, you're all good, Claudia.
You see the slide now?
Yes,
Okay, okay, thank you. Please do tell me if an email pops up or something.
I got you, I got you.
So thank you very much, Belinda, for inviting me to join all of you today, and huge kudos to and thanks and gratitude to Patty and Mike for your presentations and also for the really incredible work that both of you are doing to address hunger in the communities where you live and work. So I just want to take a few minutes, as Belinda said, to talk about the impact of the crop hunger walks on the work that CWS does, and really just to start by thanking you for raising awareness about hunger and poverty here in the United States and around the world, and really to thank you for your generous support of CWS's programs. We have a wide range of programs. As Belinda said, I'm in the U.S. Programs Department. We have services and programs for refugees, immigration legal services, children's services who have been children who are unaccompanied who come to the United States, and other programs. And then we have our domestic disaster program. And so I want to just talk about that because that's really where your money is making a huge difference and allowing us to really advance our mission to transform communities through just and sustainable responses to hunger, poverty, displacement, and disaster. So our emergency preparedness work in the United States is really kind of centered on 3 different pillars. So I just want to touch on those to give some context. And then I want to talk about the material assistance where you're really having a huge impact. So the first pillar is integration, where we really look to the refugees and asylum seekers and unaccompanied children that we serve and help them to strengthen their capacity to be prepared for and respond to disasters here in the United States and the communities where they live. And I'll share some examples in a moment. The second pillar is our response and recovery work, where we really maximize our presence in the domestic emergency structure. So that's from the community level disaster response to national level organizations that deal with at the national and state level, dealing with addressing disasters and long-term recovery. And then finally, the third pillar is the material assistance, where we strengthen systems for delivering material aid before, during, and after an emergency. So that's, as I said, where I'd like to focus. And my screen, I'm going to move my slide, hold on. Okay, can you still see me, Belinda?
Yep, I can.
Okay, all right, perfect. So our material assistance, which really are kits and blankets, are truly a tangible manifestation of our mission. A very recent example, just to give it some context, was just last month, January 12th, the tornado, as you may know, caused very significant damage in Selma, Alabama. And we at Church World Service partnered with a church in Selma and distributed 2,500 blankets and 2,500 hygiene kits across 5 badly hit counties. A number of people were initially housed, their homes were damaged, and they were initially housed in hotels and were then moved from the hotels to dormitories. And the volunteers who were distributing the CWS kits and blankets received them at the dorms, and they had made the beds with the CWS blankets and had set up the hygiene items in the bathrooms to really create a welcoming environment for the scores of people whose homes had been damaged. So the collection of materials and assembly of the kits is a really important way for faith communities and others to come together and have a truly hands-on connection to our mission. So as I say, thanks to you, our ability to provide kits and blankets is really essential to our to serving people. And it's also really important to building important relationships across communities in the US. I mentioned the organization that we partnered with in Selma, but having those relationships really helps to open doors in communities where we may not have have an existing presence, and helps to build trust with the community so that we can really try to have that impact and deliver the items that people really need. And especially to the most vulnerable neighbors, both displaced people and other folks. So in terms of, this is a picture from Hurricane Ian in Florida. And there were many, many people, as you know, who were severely impacted by that hurricane. And I want to just mention that some of the migrant workers and farm workers and other newcomers who were also really badly affected by the hurricane there. And again, as I mentioned, we partnered with local organizations who already had trusted relationships with the migrant and refugee communities. And that really helped us. They already had access to those communities and, whoops, sorry. Here we go. Okay. And allowed us to kind of come in and really make those distributions. And so you see in this picture, one of our volunteers distributing bags to someone who's living in that trailer. And so we had in Florida in Hurricane Ian, we partnered with a number of different organizations and faith-based entities, the Redlands Christian Migrant Association, for example, and a local First Presbyterian Church. And through them, we were able to distribute hundreds of hygiene kits. And what this does for folks, as you can imagine, is it first of all gives them a sense of dignity and agency. They're able to take care of themselves and their families, meet their own immediate physical needs. But it also allows people who may not be familiar with certain kinds of natural disasters, like in this case, a hurricane, it informs them about the nature of a disaster and the kinds of things that they need to think about in order to be prepared and the kinds of things they need to have on hand in an emergency. We also, because we work with refugees, I just wanted to flag, for example, in terms of this education and information, it's really critical Some of you may have heard, for example, in the blizzard up in Buffalo, there was a Congolese refugee who had resettled in the United States in 2017 after spending 5 years in a Burundi refugee camp. He was totally unprepared for a blizzard and tragically lost his life when he left home to get milk and other supplies for his family. So we really try to pair that kind of education with the distribution of these important kits and blankets. I do want to share a really important and exciting new kit that CWS recently launched at the request of some of our community members. It's called the Period Pack, and as you can see here, it's really a menstrual hygiene kit. As some of you know, feminine care products are extremely expensive in the United States, and the cost, especially for people who do live in poverty or near the poverty line, can be really an enormous barrier to purchasing the things that they need. In addition, 35 states actually tax feminine products, and food stamps do not cover these products. So it really becomes a huge barrier to women and girls getting what they need. In a disaster, the Red Cross distributes many kinds of things. They do not distribute feminine products. And so one of our Red Cross partners, again in Florida, shared that she delivered CWS period packs at a Red Cross shelter after Hurricane Ian. And she said that she was really, delivering comfort to women who had pretty much lost everything. And there was incredible gratitude and appreciation. And again, I mentioned dignity and the ability to kind of keep oneself clean and hygienic. And that's really significant for folks. So I just want to share a few numbers. This is from 2022, January through November. It does not include December numbers, but you can see these are really significant numbers of items. And so over 45,000 blankets were distributed, 41,000 hygiene kits, and so on. I'm not gonna, you can read it for yourselves, but what I want to highlight here is the total 102,633 items reached individual people. And so those are numbers, but they are people. Each of those numbers represents somebody who was touched by and supported by, warmed by a blanket, cleaned by a bar of soap, and really their dignity was restored. And again, this is a huge thanks to you and the work that you're doing and your support of CWS. I think I just have one last point. Two ideas that I would like to offer. One is that I know when you gather for your walks, often at events I've been to, sometimes there is sort of a pre-walk event of some kind, and kit assembly is a really great way and a meaningful way for a community to come together, and also a very hands-on way. You know that that item, that kit that you're putting together is going to reach one of those people. And so I'd like to invite you, when you plan your next walk, to maybe consider having a kit assembly activity. And you can go to, this is a screenshot from our website, but it's cwskits.org, and you can see there's drop-down information about how to assemble kits or drop off kits or request kits. And I do want to, the second thing I want to share is just about requesting a kit. If there is a disaster in your community, to please let your partners and community members know that they can actually also request kits from CWS. You would go to this same page and click on the request kits there at the top. So that's really it for me. I just want to reiterate that we are incredibly grateful for your support, the awareness that you raise about hunger and poverty in America, and of course the support for the organizations where Mike and Patty and so many others work. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Claudia. That was so good. I really appreciated the fact that you said that these are not just numbers, they're people, you know, and making sure that this isn't just a like transactional thing, because these are real people that we're trying to help out, and they have real emotions, real feelings. So that definitely adds to the dignity aspect. So thank you so much for that. And now we are going to field some questions that we have for all the panelists. So if all the panelists want to get back on screen, would be great. Heather's going to be joining me as well. Mike, Claudia, we're just waiting for Patty. You all did great. Such good information. Thank y'all so much. Thank you, thank you. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Patty, I'll just go ahead and ask the questions for Patty. Let's see. So we did have one question. Well, Mike, one person did say that they really appreciated the percentage, giving the percentage of the funds and like the money that goes into what's like actually being done. So again, thank you so much for we do have a question. Would any panelist articulate how the food distributed through food banks / food shelters, meals served creates sustainability for those who experience food instability? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I can touch on that a little bit. Imagine for a moment that you're sitting in a job interview and your stomach is growling while you're trying to do good in the interview. And then imagine having a meal to have nutrition, to be able to think on your feet, to be able to do well in that interview, to secure a job, and to change your pathway, right? So that's one way to think about how addressing hunger turns into sustainability for an individual. Most people that the agencies, the food pantries, the meal programs that we support, most of the people are one unfortunate circumstance away from being hungry. It might be the loss of a loved one. It might be an unexpected medical expense. It might be a natural disaster like the tornadoes that Claudia talked about a few minutes ago, or the flooding that we had here in Eastern Kentucky on July 28th. And all of a sudden, through no fault of their own, that individual finds themselves having to manage between expenses of living, transportation, in the wintertime, energy costs for housing, or in the summertime for air conditioning, and they're gonna cut somewhere to make their budget balance. And oftentimes, what gets cut is food, because it's one of the least expensive things for people to purchase in their daily lives. And so, if providing food to a family bridges that economic gap that they're trying to deal with, the sustainability is all about pathway to self-sufficiency. And that's how we think about the work. It is a bridge to self-sufficiency during an uncertain time that's almost always through no fault of the individual, neighbor, client, guest, whatever word someone chooses to use. That's how I think about sustainability.
For that answer. And I guess, well, still waiting on Patty, but maybe Claudia, you could answer this as well. But we had a question about talking about the populations served. So, well, yeah, Claudia, I'm sure you could answer this as well. But Mike, if you could start.
Yeah, so I'm often asked, what's the face of hunger? And my response is typically, look across the room, look at your neighbor, look at the household that lives across the street. There is no general face of hunger. I'll share a quick story with you. A few months ago, I was at one of the pantries here in Lexington, where God's Pantry Food Bank is based. We actually have 5 regional distribution centers and warehouses all across central and eastern Kentucky. But at this pantry at Central Christian Church on Short Street here in Lexington, a gentleman was seeking emergency food assistance. He had a ball cap with a military insignia on it, and he had a jacket with a different military insignia on it. And I asked him if he had served, and the answer was yes. And I thanked him for his service. And he goes, "No, I need to thank you for yours." And so I asked why. And he had served in the military for about 20 years. And he was in a difficult spot, and life around him came crashing in. He lost his home, he lost his job, he basically lost everything. And he essentially said, if it wasn't for the food that I have gotten here over the last few weeks, I don't know that you and I would be sitting here having this conversation now, because
I'm working a webinar, Mom. I can't talk.
so the point I'm trying to make is there is no typical person. There is no average hungry person. It's people that you see walking up and down the street every day. I will share a second story if I could. Years ago, when I first started in hunger relief, I was in Newark, New Jersey, visiting Kathleen DeChara, who was the CEO of the Food Bank of New Jersey. And I actually asked her the same question that you just asked, Belinda. And her answer was a little bit more profound than the one that I just shared. She had gotten a call from her priest. Her priest was sending a parishioner over to the food bank late on a Friday night because this person needed food. When the person arrived, she was in a fur coat driving a Cadillac. And Kathleen, because she had made a commitment to the priest, gave an emergency food distribution. Following Monday, called the priest who was traveling and said, "I just want you to know that this didn't quite feel right." And the priest essentially said, "I can't tell you the details. The assumption is that he learned something in confession, but I can assure you that this individual needed help." What she found out many months later was that that woman had been on a business trip. Her significant other had locked her out of the house, had drained all of the checking accounts, had changed all of the locks, and she basically had nothing but the car that she drove to the airport, the clothes on her back, and the clothes in her suitcase. And that was it. So you cannot judge someone who's hungry by the cover. You have to probe a little bit deeper.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing both of those stories. And that's so true. You really can't judge, right? You really never know. It could be your next door neighbor. So thank you for that. Claudia, I'm going to ask a separate question from the one I asked earlier. But do you know how many cleanup buckets CWS sends out in a year, or something about that?
Well, I can tell you that last year we distributed 6,580 buckets between January and the end of November. It would be, I didn't get the full year number, but it would have been much higher because of various natural disasters and emergencies in December. But you could imagine close to 7,000, I would say, for last year. And may I just take a moment just to respond, to add on to what Mike was saying, because I think in the emergency response and disaster response space, you know, there too, I mean, socioeconomic status has nothing to do with whether you're going to be hit by a disaster. And so our work through our emergency preparedness, response, and recovery program is to deliver services to anyone who is in need. And we do that through the variety of ways I mentioned, including the material assistance. I mean, because we do in other programs serve displaced people, we do strive to make sure that they are as well informed and prepared as possible, because due to language barriers or other things, they may not have the information or resources that other folks might. But if you think about wildfires in California, or floods or hurricanes or tornadoes in Kentucky, I mean, really, anyone can be susceptible and is susceptible to that. And so we are here to serve anyone who is in that position.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much for that. Claudia, one question for you actually in regards to the period kits, the packets. Someone asked, is this program of period kits that's done by your organization? Is this the only one in the country? There has to be a huge need all over this country, and I'm so thankful that you're doing this.
Oh, thank you so much for the comment and the question. And I know that there are other organizations that do collections, like as if you would do a backpack drive, like a drive for feminine hygiene products. Because of the expense, you know, that the need is huge. I don't know if, so I don't want to say that we're the only one doing it. I know that there are others, and I know there are also corporations that produce these items that also do in-kind contributions at really significant levels. And, you know, in my town in Norwalk, Connecticut, one of the high schools is providing for their own students. So there are others doing it. It is a new initiative that I'm really proud that we're doing, because I think it does have a unique impact on a very specific population. So I would love to see it get larger. And if you do go to our website, there's really great information about, you know, encouraging, you know, a gathering of women or whomever at your home and having a kit assembly for that specific program. It doesn't have to be women either, but
yeah, cool. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I mean, as a woman, I'm actually very glad that we're doing it as well. I think it's an amazing initiative. And then I'm just going to ask one last question to Patty. So someone asked, do the students from the university come for food as well? Because you did mention that they volunteer. And what's the need like among university students, if they have some?
Sure. Well, some do. We don't have a great number of students, and we don't know for sure why. We think possibly it's a bit of a stigma type of thing. Some do come, and they're definitely in need. We know that a lot of students struggle with food insecurity as well. There is a little pantry on campus that helps out with like dry, you know, canned goods and that kind of thing. But what we do see is when the students volunteer, and then after, you know, their shift is over, we say to them, no, you're welcome to shop as well. And oh, they get really excited about they get to take home food. And so that's cool to see. And we encourage, and some of them say, oh no, I don't need it. And we encourage them to, though, or at least maybe bring it to some other dorm mates or apartment that people that might need it. So we're always trying to share. We have a lot of food, plenty of food to give, and we're thankful for that, so that we can, you know, readily give as much as possible.
That's awesome. I know I definitely could have utilized that when I was in undergrad. So thank you so much for your service with that.
Sure.
And we are running out of time. So we will send these questions along with the recording and have your local CWS staffer answer some of those questions if necessary. But I just wanted to say thank you again. to Patty, Michael, and Claudia for taking time out of your day to come and share these amazing stories and let us know what's going on ground within the U.S. And I wanted to thank everyone else for watching and being so engaging. That's the end of our program for today, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
thanks everyone. Be safe and be healthy.